Imagine standing at the edge of your child's crib at 3:17 a.m., your fingers clenched around the rail, your breath barely audible over the soft hiss of the white noise machine. The world is still, yet inside your mind, everything is loud. You're replaying the day, agonizing over the tone you used during breakfast, wondering if the screen time limit should have been stricter, regretting how you snapped when they spilled milk for the third time. You try to reassure yourself, "I'm doing my best," but your chest tightens, because deep down, you're not sure that's enough. What if your best still leaves gaps? What if your child falls into one? This is the terrifying paradox of perfectionistic parenting. You crave control not because you don't trust your child, but because you don't trust yourself to be imperfect and still be enough. There's a voice in your head whispering, "If I get it exactly right, they'll be okay. If I mess up, I'll damage them forever." But what if that voice is lying to you? Perfectionism in parenting wears a flattering disguise. It masquerades as devotion, conscientiousness, even love. You research every developmental milestone, memorize behavioral strategies, follow the parenting accounts with the curated Montessori shelves and meal preps. You try to anticipate every need before it arises, imagine every outcome before it unfolds. You don't want to control your child, you want to protect them. But what happens when protection becomes a prison for both of you? Here's the unsettling truth. Control is seductive precisely because it offers the illusion of safety. And perfectionism? It's the currency we use to purchase that illusion. But the cost is steep. You trade spontaneity for structure, joy for vigilance, connection for correction. And still, the anxiety doesn't go away. You tell yourself you're being responsible, but you know the difference between preparation and obsession. You feel it in your shoulders every time they slump under the weight of another impossible expectation. You hear it in your voice when it gets too tight, too sharp, when you're no longer guiding but micromanaging. You watch your child flinch, hesitate, over-apologize. They've started to internalize the same pressure you live under. You wanted to be their safe place, but you're realizing you're also their mirror. So, the question becomes, what are you teaching them to reflect? You might think perfectionism gives you control, but the more rigid you become, the more things slip through your fingers: messy emotions, spontaneous joy, authentic connection. All the things that make childhood, and all the things that make parenting real. No one told you that parenting would feel like a constant state of exposure, that the vulnerability of loving someone this much, being responsible for someone this much, would crack open every dormant insecurity, every unresolved fear, every echo of your own childhood wounds. No one warned you that having a child doesn't just make you a parent, it makes you visible. Suddenly, you're not just raising them. You're standing in the middle of your own unfinished story, forced to confront the pages you skipped or tore out long ago. You catch yourself reacting in ways that don't even feel like you. You hear your mother's voice, your father's silence, the criticisms that shaped you, the rules that governed your worth. And in those moments, the desire for control intensifies. Because if you can just get it right, maybe you won't pass on what you never meant to carry. But this is the moment that matters. Not the moment you figured it all out. The moment you realized you can't. Because perfectionism doesn't make you a better parent. It makes you a more exhausted one, a more disconnected one, a more afraid one. Your child doesn't need a flawless parent, they need a whole one. And wholeness doesn't come from controlling every detail, it comes from releasing the belief that your worth is tied to your performance. That's the paradox, isn't it? The more you release control, the more authentic power you gain. Not the power to dictate outcomes, but the power to connect, to repair, to model resilience instead of rigidity, to teach them, by example, that imperfection isn't failure, it's humanity. And humanity is what keeps love real. So the question now is not, how do I become a perfect parent? It's, what part of myself am I trying to protect with perfection, and what would happen if I let it go? Let's go there. Let's look at the part of you that clings so tightly to control, not to judge it, but to understand it. Because understanding is where healing begins. And healing, not perfection, is what your child will carry with them. Picture this. Your child is building a block tower on the floor. You notice the base is uneven. You feel a twitch in your chest. It's going to fall. You kneel down, gently suggest using the larger blocks first. They resist. You insist. They push back. You correct. They cry. You feel a sudden spike of guilt, followed by defensiveness. You were just trying to help. You didn't want them to fail. You wanted it to be better for them. But was it really for them? Or was it about quieting something that got loud inside you? Control isn't born out of cruelty, it's born out of fear. Often ancient fear, primal, even, the kind buried so deep, it becomes invisible. You don't even see it operating, just the trail it leaves, the tension in your jaw, the disappointment that sticks to little moments, the gnawing worry that nothing you do will ever be enough. And yet, you keep trying. Why? Because somewhere along the way, you learned that love must be earned, that acceptance is conditional, that safety means being good, being careful, being in control. Maybe it wasn't outright abuse. Maybe it was subtle, a withdrawn parent, an unpredictable one, a smile that disappeared when you misbehaved, praise that only came when you achieved, a sense, quiet but persistent, that who you were wasn't quite right, but who you could become, with enough effort, might be. So you became effort, you became vigilance, you became hyper-attuned to the moods around you, practiced in preempting needs, apologizing too soon, and excelling too often. Now you're a parent, and suddenly, you're back in a familiar posture, managing chaos, trying to control outcomes, trying to keep everyone happy, safe, regulated. You tell yourself it's for them, but your body knows the truth. You're trying to control what you couldn't back then. You're trying to heal an old wound with a new strategy. But here's the truth that aches. Your child's pain won't erase your own, and their perfection won't redeem your past. So what do you do when your triggers masquerade as instincts? You pause, you breathe, you learn to observe yourself without abandoning yourself. This is the beginning of releasing perfectionism, not with strategies or surface-level affirmations, but with intimacy, with yourself. Because parenting doesn't just expose who you are, it introduces you to parts you've been running from for decades. The part of you that couldn't make their parent smile, the part that tried to be perfect, just to feel safe, the part that internalized, if I can get it all right, then I'll be loved, then I'll be okay. And now, your child's tantrum, their defiance, their vulnerability, it collides with that younger version of you. Suddenly, you're not just a parent in a kitchen, you're a child in a memory. You're triggered, you're flooded, you respond not from the present, but from the past. This is why parenting with perfectionism isn't sustainable. It fractures you. It forces you to override your instincts, silence your needs, and perform for peace. But what if you chose presence over performance? That would require something radical, self-compassion. And here's the paradox again. Releasing perfectionism doesn't make you lazier, sloppier, or less intentional. It makes you safer to yourself and to your child. Because a child doesn't just learn from what you teach, they absorb how you treat yourself. If you punish yourself for mistakes, so will they. If you never rest, neither will they. If your worth depends on your output, theirs will too. They're watching, not your techniques, but your truth. So, let's look at what your perfectionism is protecting. What are you afraid will happen if you let go? That they'll grow up reckless? That they won't respect you? That they'll hurt the way you did? Here's the uncomfortable but liberating truth. Your control can't protect them from pain, but your presence can help them process it. And that is far more powerful. Because pain is inevitable. Ruptures will happen. You'll yell when you shouldn't. They'll cry longer than you have patience for. You'll forget picture day. They'll spill applesauce all over your clean shirt minutes before a meeting. But in that mess, if you stay connected, they'll learn the one thing perfection could never teach. That love survives imperfection. That mistakes aren't the end, they're an invitation. That their worth doesn't evaporate when they fail. And neither does yours. The control you're clinging to? It's a response to something much deeper. Something sacred. The desire to protect. To do right. To love well. But love well doesn't mean love without flaw. It means love with honesty, with humility, with the courage to say, I was too harsh, I'm sorry, or, I need a moment to calm down before I can help you, or, I didn't get it right, but I'm learning. Because here's the miracle of parenting without perfection. Your children don't just witness your strength, they witness your repair, your resilience, your evolution, and that becomes their blueprint, not how to be flawless, but how to be human. This is the secret no one told you. Control feels powerful, but surrender is transformational. It's not a passive giving up. It's an active choosing to stay present, to stay open, to stay real. So maybe, just maybe, the next time you see your child stacking those crooked blocks, you won't intervene. You'll sit beside them, let it wobble, let it fall, let them laugh, or cry, or ask for help. Let it be imperfect, and let yourself be with it. Because parenting isn't a performance, it's a relationship, and relationships are messy, unscripted, sacred, and if you allow it, this one will heal you, too. You're standing in the kitchen, it's the end of the day, crumbs on the floor, something sticky on the counter, your child is barefoot, trailing a purple marker across a cereal box, humming off-key. You should stop them. It's wasteful. It's messy. It's not what a good parent would allow, but instead, you sit. You let the moment breathe, and for the first time in a long time, so do you. This is where the transformation begins, not in some epiphany under perfect lighting, not on a mountaintop of parental wisdom, but in the ordinary, often frustrating, beautifully unscripted moments where you choose presence over performance, where you choose connection over control. This isn't just about parenting strategies. This is legacy work. Because perfectionism isn't just a personal quirk, it's generational. It's inherited like an heirloom, passed down not just through words but through atmospheres, glances, silences. It's a culture you grew up inside. Maybe it was never named, but it was felt. Be good, be quiet, be helpful, be exceptional. Don't cry, don't complain, don't make a scene, and if you did, shame, withdrawal, maybe just a look, maybe nothing at all, but you felt it. That icy pause, that sense of having slipped out of favor. You learned that love had terms, that safety had a price, and now, you're standing in the doorway of the next generation, holding that same heirloom in your hands. The question isn't whether it was passed to you, it was. The real question is, will you pass it on? This is where your power lies, not in getting everything right, but in interrupting the pattern, in noticing when you're slipping into control, when you're using performance as protection, and choosing again and again to return to yourself, to your child, to the present moment. Letting go of perfectionism doesn't mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean you abandon boundaries or give up on growth. It means you ground those things in relationship, not fear, in values, not anxiety. So what does that actually look like? It looks like asking yourself, in the heat of a meltdown, am I trying to teach or trying to shut this down because I feel out of control? It looks like noticing the impulse to correct every tiny behavior and instead asking, what does my child need beneath this behavior? What do I need? It looks like staying curious, especially when you want to be certain. It looks like saying, I don't know, but I'm here. Perfectionism demands a script. Presence requires improvisation, and at first, it's terrifying. You'll feel naked without your rules, your routines, your carefully curated images of what a good parent should be. You'll feel like you're failing more often, because now you're noticing. Now you're awake. But what feels like failure is actually awakening. You're shifting from managing your child's behavior to meeting their being. That's the work. You're no longer the enforcer of ideals, you're the steward of a relationship. One that will outlast potty training, tantrums, adolescence, and even the years when they forget to call. And guess what? They won't remember the perfectly packed lunches or the fact that their socks always matched. They'll remember how it felt to be in your presence, safe, or scrutinized, loved for who they were, or for how well they performed. Did they have space to fall apart? Or only to rise up? Were they allowed to be in process, or were they expected to be polished? And the same goes for you. What if you were allowed to be in process, too? To be tired, to be unsure, to grow in front of them, not just when the lights are off and the doors are closed, but in real time? What if that's what builds true trust? Not your certainty, not your perfection, but your willingness to stay with them when it's messy, without rushing to fix, correct, or improve. Because there's a deeper need underneath every power struggle, every meltdown, every moment that threatens to unravel you. It's not just about what they're doing, it's about how safe they feel being human around you. And you're no different. So if you've been parenting from a place of tension, of pressure, of performative effort, pause. Put down the script. Look around. Feel the weight of your breath. There is nothing in this moment that requires you to be perfect, but there is an invitation to be present. Not just with your child, but with the younger version of you that still thinks love is earned, that still flinches under criticism, that still believes you're only safe if you're in control. They deserve your presence, too. They need you to say what no one ever did. You're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to try and still get it wrong. You're allowed to be loved anyway. And here's the quiet miracle. As you begin to say that to yourself, you begin to parent differently. Not because someone told you to, but because your nervous system no longer believes you have to grip everything to keep everyone safe. You become softer, not weaker, wiser. You allow space for emotion, for failure, for growth. You stop trying to mold your child into someone safe to love, and start loving them as someone safe to be. And in doing so, you free yourself. Because perfectionism was never about excellence. It was about exile. You exiled the parts of yourself that were loud, messy, afraid, tender, and now you are learning to welcome them home. This is what legacy breaking looks like. Not dramatic, not performative, but quiet, embodied, consistent. It looks like a parent on their knees next to a spilled bowl of cereal saying, "It's okay, I spill sometimes, too." It looks like a deep breath instead of a harsh word, a hand on the back instead of a lecture. It looks like staying, again and again, especially when it's imperfect. Because real love doesn't need a spotless floor or a script to read from. It just needs you, not the curated version, the real one, present, human, whole.